at Coast really originated out of trying to understand what we meant by sustainability, and also a way to promote some dialogue within the network. The network is, as I mentioned, distributed around the world, and we wanted a way to kind of start some kind of conversation and dialogue amongst those folks. And when we started talking about sustainability, we also realized that every time we started to talk about it, we didn't really agree on what we were talking about. Like, what is the definition of sustainability? And so, what better way to start this than asking the network what they think about sustainability, what sustainability means in their context. So it was a survey-based approach. We had about 200 or so respondents, and this is kind of a heat map showing where they were. For some reason, we had a whole lot of people respond from Germany, and that's great. But you can see it's pretty well distributed around the world. And the other thing I'll mention is that you're going to see a lot of word clouds in the next couple of minutes. So don't get too crazed about the word clouds. But anyhow, we had a lot from Germany, Australia, the U.S., South Africa, but it was pretty well distributed. So we had, that was our goal, was to have respondents from lots of different places and lots of different contexts. Slightly more respondents were male. A bunch did not report on what their gender was, but slightly more that did reported being male. It looked like a pretty good mix of early, mid, and late career folks. But I wanted to mention that most of them were academics or in the research area, which isn't surprising. That's most of the constituents of Future Earth Coast. But we're really hoping at some point to reach out to more of the practitioners as well. So one of the things we did was ask folks to rank some previously published priorities in coastal sustainability research. So these were published in these two papers here, and we asked folks to rank those things. And remember, these are the academics, the natural science folks, and the first 5 were governance, cultural, community, and ecological health, communication, human behavior change, and food, water, housing, security. So very much human-centered kind of approaches or priorities for sustainability research. They also were able to add their own if one of their priorities was not mentioned here. So I found that very interesting. The natural science folks prioritize these human kind of elements at the very top of the list. Several more of these. So we asked folks what their perceived barriers to sustainability were in their context. You could probably remove the word coastal here, but the rest of the things, a lack of political will, lack of resources, lack of protection or education or funding, poor governance and things like that seem to be some of the major themes that came out. And what people were working on, how are they contributing to coastal sustainability worldwide? Again, you could probably take the word coastal out of here because that's what we're focusing on, but knowledge, sustainability, change, and capacity building were some of the big things that came out in the word cloud. We'll do a little bit more than that. And the meat of it was about what do people consider coastal sustainability to mean in the context of your research or your work. So this is a word cloud of that. And we got a little bit more in depth on this particular question. And Katya's been using some qualitative research software called NVivo, which separates out narrative responses into categories depending on how you code those responses. But nevertheless, it created 8 broad categories, including ecosystem services, sense of balance, societal needs, grand challenges, conservation, longevity, thinking about things in the long term, governance, and interventions to create that sustainability. So she broke those up and started looking at some of the responses that were within there and some of the things that people responded to within that definition. And she noticed that there's a little bit of a flow or a little bit of a direction to these things. So she's still working on this and still kind of processing this. but she also created more word clouds for each one of these things. And so I started playing around with that. So over the last couple of days, I've been kind of having to play. You're going to see me wave my arms a lot here because this is not my thing, but so that one over here is societal needs. That's one of the first things. So society has needs, economic needs, social needs, livelihoods, etc., that are met in part by natural services and values. That's one of those other categories that you mentioned. So ecosystem services, coastal resources, environment and natural resources. Mentioned that sense of balance. We need to maintain that sense of balance. I'm not sure if that's in the right place here, but we'll see. Maintaining that sense of balance between the natural systems and the social systems to solve or address really big challenges, including climate change, adaptation, and things like that. Using strategies and tactics for those interventions came through. And looking again into the future. So these things we have to be looking at things far into the future as part of the sustainability. And then that comes around and helps meet sustainability's needs. So it's an interesting, I found it an interesting exercise in kind of dissecting what we mean by, what a lot of people seem to mean by coastal sustainability. And I found it really kind of fun. Not sure if this is going to stay this way, but that's what we've been